At the very beginning of the manga, Seo Kouji said he would pick a winner based on the character's popularity. Whether that turned out to be the case or not, I guess it's a bit debatable. We could look at the popularity polls and get a conclusion regarding that, just for the sake of it. Of course, I compiled all of that for you guys. Here are the overall popularity results. There were 5 polls. Shiragiku took the first, Akane won the next 3, and Oka took the last. However, Akane ranked second in the last poll, so if we took them into consideration, this is just some extra fun information. I doubt Seo Kouji actually used them. I mean, we could also say that he has a bias for these singer type of characters, but again, I wouldn't think too much about it. What all that means is that Hayato's wife wasn't necessarily planned from the start. And while that might be a little lackluster on the mystery side, which the manga taps into slightly, it makes for a far better reading experience overall. Because, as you all know, in most harem manga there is a clear winner. Whether that's the first girl introduced, or the cover girl, or the one in the middle, it's not often that a harem manga deviates from that formula. We had exceptions, and I feel like we're starting to get even more exceptions, but none quite as satisfying as Megami no Cafe. Hear me out. I'm reading the manga. I'm almost 200 chapters in, and I genuinely couldn't tell who's going to win. And it's not because the writing is shite or there's no story or character development. On the contrary, the story progresses nicely and each character gets their time to develop. And given that the winner wasn't planned from the start, it means that anybody can take it. Almost anybody. It does lean heavily towards someone specifically in the last 20-ish chapters. You could be reading a portion of the manga where Oka is the primary focus, and you think to yourself, she's getting so much of the spotlight, maybe she's gotta be the one. Only to jump into Akane's arc and have your opinion completely changed. Then it's Riho time, and you are pretty sure she stands no chance. So yeah, not all 5 of them stand on equal ground. It actually gets pretty clear that Riho is just there for the ride, unfortunately. The last time I made a video on the series, the manga had around 115 chapters, and to be honest, Riho hasn't changed that much. It's not that she didn't get her development, she did, but most of the important beats were early. Then Seo Kouji introduced 5 more, potential but not really, love interests for Hayato, and they also had to go through their own development, so that set the main 5 back for a while, which Riho was a victim of, but not as badly as Ami was. Ami never got a proper arc, well, a romantic one at least, and I had a crazy strong deja vu towards the end of the manga. She appeared to be this dark horse throughout the whole manga, waiting for an arc or some proper focus to enable her to push forward and show us a different side, that romantic and relationship worthy side. But that never came. I was thinking whether Seo Kouji would pull some sort of twist toward the end of the manga, but again, that never happened. I'm not saying it should have happened, Ami is a fun character as she is, but I would lie if I said I didn't expect it at some point. So really, when I say I genuinely had no idea who would take the win, I'm referring to Oka and Akane. Ami was always lurking in the shadows and she could have popped out at any moment, but once the announcement that the manga would end soon happened, I knew she jumped off the ride. Oh, did I forget someone? My mind must be playing tricks to me. Now, something to keep in mind is that Seo Kouji had some influence from the quintessential quintuplets. And if you've read that series, it's not hard to see. Oka and Hayato's relationship is oddly similar to that of Futaro and Itsuki. Of course, they have their differences and Oka goes much further than Itsuki, but the core of their relationship is strikingly similar. Ami and Yotsuba are both that silly friend with, potentially, something hidden that poses as the dark horse. Only that in the end Ami didn't have anything hidden, she was just a funny dumb girl. But it doesn't mean that the dark horse aura wasn't looming over me throughout the entire manga. Now, given that, in the back of my mind I started to lose faith that Oka could be his wife and also expected Ami to pop out at any time. And I'm not quite sure that was smart on Seo Kouji's part. Here's the thing. We know he took inspiration from the queens, which means he was aware of how the manga ended. So with Megami no Cafe, he could either do the same thing, but better, right? Have Ami win in a satisfying manner, or he could do something completely different and surprise everyone. Which would also mean that Oka, the one character who falls heavily into the main girl type, would not win. I'm not saying that's what he did, but I'm pretty sure everyone who also read The Queens have had the exact same thoughts as me. The idea that, hey, this could be a possibility. Now Seo Kouji did end up picking Akane. And I can't really say that was a surprise, since Akane and Hayato ultimately had the best chemistry and the most organic development, and also towards the end of the manga Akane really took off and left the others behind. So Akane winning felt right. When reading it, and even in hindsight, it makes sense. I don't say this very often, but the choice was surprisingly satisfying. The thing is, this is not one of those manga where you can go back to the first chapter and then slowly pick up clues and parallels that would reveal Hayato's wife, because there aren't any specifically. It really feels like a choice based on development and chemistry. Unless Seo Kouji did the popularity thing, then it would be that. But jokes aside, the one with the best chemistry and development won. If you think about Hayato and each girl as a couple, here is where Akane was way ahead of the others throughout the whole manga, and it's easily seen in her interactions with Hayato. Akane doesn't overreact. There is this scene in chapter 128. Now, at that point in the story, pretty much all of them have confessed to Hayato and they're waiting for an answer. They keep bringing it up to Hayato every now and then, but it's always kind of too much. They're pushing too much or trying too hard. And then there's Akane. Look at these panels. She casually tells Hayato that she wants him for herself while also teasing him about his hesitation to respond to the others. This comfort level between them has been consistent throughout the entire manga, and every time the focus shifts towards them, their bond grows stronger and stronger. Like in chapter 164, where Akane and Hayato are home alone and left to spend the day together. The atmosphere throughout the chapter is nice and cozy. Akane cooks for him, then tells him that if they were to get married, that's how their life would be, and asks him whether Hayato would like it that way. Now here is where you would expect Hayato to back off, right? But he answered favorably. Come night, they even sleep in the same futon, and when the situation escalated, Hayato seemed to go with the flow. Of course, the others barged in and destroyed the moment, but if they didn't, can we really say Hayato would have backed off? And it's funny because Riho literally gets thrown in the same scenario as Akane. In chapter 178, she's home alone with Hayato, she cooks for him, asks the same marriage question Akane asked, they sleep next to each other, she even tries to go further, but Hayato doesn't engage at all, and that's throughout the entire chapter. The difference is huge. I'm sure someone else got thrown in this same scenario too. I just can't remember. I think my mind must be playing tricks to me. It also helps a lot that Hayato goes along with Akane's behavior. Like in chapter 132, Akane is nervous about performing on stage because of the crowd, and Hayato tells her to perform for him. She asks Hayato whether he will accept her feelings if she does that, and instead of backing out of the situation, Hayato doubles down a bit, tells Akane to bring it up again after she's done a good performance. Of course, he doesn't do anything after that since there were another 100 chapters left in the story, but my point is that Hayato always engages with Akane's behavior and teasing, unlike the way he responds to the others. For the longest time, Oka had it all. It seemed like she was getting the main girl treatment. She's got some of the most significant interactions, her relationship with Hayato went through the best narrative progression, she's got the best kissing, her development was really taking off. But then she said this in chapter 119. She doubled down on her confession to Hayato and told him that someday she'll make him fall in love with her. Now, that, ladies and gentlemen, is something someone shouldn't say. It's the blueprint for rejection. I can't tell you how many times I've read this exact line in Romance and Harem, and the person who said it got nothing in the end. That's not to say Oka was doomed. Seo Kouji likes to troll every now and then, he even created a character to mock this cliché, but you can never be too sure. I'm not going to lie, this was stuck in the back of my mind throughout the rest of the manga. Also, you know that organic relationship between Oka and Hayato? How organic their interactions felt, how organic their relationship developed? Well, come chapter 166 and all that is thrown out of the window. For some reason she starts to try different methods to win Hayato over. Methods that Hekiru and Mao advised, by the way, and not only do they not work, obviously, but Hayato appears to be annoyed by her behavior. That's what I was worried about in my previous video. Shortly after she returned from France, her personality and behavior changed completely. The difference between Oka pre and post France is actually mental. I don't know what the fuck happened, but that part of the manga really chipped away at the core of the relationship. She did recover a little bit later in the manga, but the damage was already done. On top of that, she became dependent on someone else pushing her to take action. First it was Hekiru, then it was Mao, and then it was her sister, like, how about you do something yourself? Despite that, I would still say Oka had great chances. Sometimes she was even ahead of Akane. Slightly. And I say that because of how often Akane was put in the same bag as Riho and Shiragiku. They were always portrayed as a trio. I called them the on-hole gang in my previous video, right? Because they confessed early and then they kept fighting each other for Hayato's attention. Now, Akane was pulled out of that bag on several occasions, but somehow she still ended up back in it. So that's one of the reasons I had Oka ahead of Akane at certain points in the story, but not enough for me to argue that she should have won. The one who surprised me the most and somehow took such a deep fall was Shiragiku. I thought she would have a bigger role and a significant arc given the whole childhood friend thing. It's kind of funny that Seo Kouji had this scene in chapter 135. Despite Shiragiku being the childhood friend, which to be honest, they were more acquaintances than friends, and despite Hayato having a crush on young Shiragiku, absolutely nothing came out of it. Out of the main 5, I would say Shiragiku doesn't have much character outside of her quirks, and that drunk quirk barely shows up in the last 100 chapters. This might be a consequence of Seo Kouji introducing 6 brand new characters so early in the manga, and then also giving them their time to shine and develop. I mean, I don't complain, Mao slowly got under my skin and she became my favorite. I knew there was no chance whatsoever though, but that meant the main 5 would be sidelined every now and then. Also, I don't know if the manga had to be this long. Unfortunately, Shiragiku got the short end of the stick either way. Alongside Ami, who, in hindsight, wasn't really a contender. It doesn't mean she wasn't entertaining on page, she definitely was, maybe too much at times, but Ami and Shiragiku didn't really do anything important or had any significant interactions with Hayato in the last, 100 chapters. To be honest, after the Miyakojima trip, the story started to shift the focus a bit. It leaned towards some of the side characters. We still had portions of the manga dedicated to each girl, but the action in those chapters was more of the same thing when it came to their progression and character development. Ami's chapters focused more on her sister Erin, while Shiragiku's focused on this brand new character, Princess Olivia. They weren't bad chapters, but when you look at what chapters Akane and Oka got, like, what's going on here? It's night and day. Which leads us to the ending itself, which was fine. Now, could it have used a bit more polish? 100%. It did feel like a weird spot to finish it, and it was for sure anticlimactic. The reveal just sort of happened without any proper build-up or some suspense leading to his answer. It was almost a side note, like an afterthought. Now, does it make sense in the context of the manga? Yes, it does. Hayato is very similar to his grandpa, Masahiro. I mean, it's not hard to see, every single old person in the manga likes to remind us of that. And if we look at how Masahiro proposed to Sachiko, then it all falls into place, right? Personally, I would have liked if the moment was more eventful, maybe actually get to see the confession and everyone's reaction to it, but it's not like that would change too much. To top it off, the final pages ended with the same harem shenanigans that the main cast have pulled with every possible occasion they had. Looking back on the series, since I had to binge read it from the start because I had forgotten a lot since my last video, the ending fits quite well with the story's atmosphere. I do think it would have been much better if the manga had, say, 60-70 chapters less. That would remove all the unnecessary filler that damaged some of the characters, but still, overall, I don't get to say this very often. Finally, a good ending to a harem series.